Hey everybody, I've got another PC build for you today. A few weeks ago I put up a video on a $500 gaming PC build I put together, and in this video I'm going to show you what you can put together for around 600 bucks. The $500 build I put together performed well in most games, and so I wanted to see what kind of performance gains an extra $100 or so could bring to the table. As always, I bought everything on Amazon, but if you were to shop around, you could probably get the price of this build down even further. I've also included all of the links to the parts in this build in the description below, and I will try to update them as prices change so that while the parts may differ from what you're seeing in this video, the links will go to a more up-to-date list of parts. Some of the parts in this build are the same as the parts in the $500 build, except this system has an upgraded graphics card, double the memory, a slightly larger power supply, a higher end motherboard, and a different case. This $600 build comes with a Ryzen 5 2600 processor, an RX 590 graphics card, and 16 gigabytes of memory. So it will be interesting to see how much more performance the RX 590 and 16 gigabytes of RAM deliver over the RX 580 and 8 gigabytes of RAM in the $500 build. To round out the other parts, this system comes with an ADATA 480GB SSD, an EVGA 600-watt bronze-rated power supply, MSI's B450A Pro motherboard, and Cougar's MX330G case. Like the last build, this $600 system was fairly easy to put together. Here's a look at the build process. I tested this build on a 1080p monitor in the same 8 games I tested the $500 PC build in. That's Fortnite, PUBG, Rocket League, League of Legends, Apex Legends, Overwatch, The Witcher 3, and Borderlands 3. The upgraded RX 590 and the extra 8GB of RAM helped give the $600 PC build anywhere from a 10 to 20% increase in average frame rate over the $500 PC build in those 8 games. The system averaged over 90 frames per second on epic settings in Fortnite and got well over 120 frames per second when dropping down to higher settings. In PUBG, the game ran right at about 70 frames per second on ultra settings and averaged about 85 frames per second when dropping down to high settings. The build pushed The Witcher 3 at an average of 70 frames per second on ultra settings and about 90 frames per second on high settings, both with Nvidia's Hairworks turned off. Just like with the $500 build, Borderlands 3 gave this $600 PC build the most problems. However, unlike the $500 system, which struggled to maintain over 50 frames per second in Borderlands 3 on ultra settings, the combination of the RX 590 and the extra 8GB of RAM helped this $600 build average a little over 60 frames per second on ultra settings, so a nice little bump in performance. For the non-demanding titles I benchmarked this system on, that's Rocket League, League of Legends, Overwatch, and Apex Legends, the combination of the RX 590 and 16GB of RAM outperformed the combination of the RX 580 and 8GB of RAM by a decent margin. However, it's important to note that while the $600 build did outperform the $500 build in these more non-demanding titles, the difference is somewhat negligible when you consider that the RX 580 in the $500 build was pushing these games well above 100 frames per second, with exception to Apex Legends on ultra settings. The combination of the RX 580 and the 8GB of RAM in the $500 PC build performed adequately in these non-demanding titles, and the 10 to 20% performance advantage that the RX 590 and 16GB of RAM from the $600 build offer may not amount to much in terms of real-world advantages. So overall, I think if you have a budget of around $600 to build a new gaming PC with, this build will treat you very well, especially if you're looking to play a mix of games that include some more graphics-intensive titles. If all you need is a system that can handle popular esports titles like Rocket League or Dota 2 or League of Legends, you could definitely save some money by dropping down to an RX 580 and 8GB of RAM. One important thing to note is that in the time I purchase all of the parts for these builds, to the time I receive them and assemble them, to the time I record and publish this video, a lot can change in the computer component market. Prices change, products go out of stock, and next generation components become available. My goal is to try and keep the links updated below so that you're always getting a look at what I believe is an up-to-date and viable set of parts for a $600 budget. And as always, you can customize this as much as you want. If you'd rather go with an Intel build here, you could drop the RX 590 down to a 580, and that should free you up enough room in your budget to switch from a Ryzen 5 2600 to an Intel Core i5 9400F with an H310 chipset motherboard. I also opted for a standard ATX B450 chipset motherboard in this build, but you could save a bit more by dropping down to a micro ATX B450 motherboard too. Ultimately, while I provide a full part list for the system, which you can use as is, it can also be used as a template to mold to your own personal preferences and budget. In the end, this $600 build ran incredibly well. It handles demanding titles on a 1080p monitor at max settings very well and pushes non-demanding titles with ease. If you want to build this PC, again, I provided links to all of the parts in the description below, and if this is your first time building a PC, I've also linked to our step-by-step PC build guide too. It should be noted that if you do use the links in the description below to purchase components, I will get a commission. I really appreciate any support, but of course you can always just search for the components on Amazon or Newegg and purchase them that way as well. If you have any questions on this build or the build process in general, post them in the comments and I'll try to get back to you. And if you do have a new build coming up, good luck to you, especially if it's your first time. You're going to have a lot of fun putting it together. In any case, thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.